everyone, it's Melody with Design by Melody. I'm here today with a 12 by 12 layout. This is actually a picture of, so let me see if I can tell you. So couple months ago, well, let's see, when was this? October of 2016, so more than a couple months ago. Ernest and I were down at his parents' house, and his grandfather was down there visiting from New York, and his great aunt was also there visiting from Colorado, and then his other great uncle was also there visiting from Pennsylvania. And they're obviously brothers and sisters. The grandfather, the great uncle, and the great aunt are brothers and sisters. And we were down there for, I think it was for Ernest's mom's retirement party or something like that. But either way, the family was all gathered, and we spent some time down there visiting. And we don't actually get together all of the extended family very often. We get together for particular events, but they just seem to be far and few between because everybody's a little bit further. And then as people age, it's a lot harder for everyone to get together. Well, I am so glad that we were able to spend some time with them because that was really the last time we got to be with all three of them together. And so it was really just kind of nice to sit around and talk and just hear some of the stories. And even though Ernest and I have been together 15 years, I hadn't even heard half of the stories that his grandfather and his brother and sister were telling us. So, and then after they told us all these stories, we were driving around town. I think we were going to visit the waterfront and let Kaylin play in the playground, but we actually drove by a couple of the houses. So Ernest showed me the house that his parents lived in when he was born, so I snapped a picture of that. That's not this one. And then he also showed me the house of where his grandparents grew up, and that's what this particular house is. So I will have to fact check my details with Ernest's mom, because his grandfather has passed at this point, and I obviously can't ask him. But I need to fact check with Ernest's mom just to make sure, and I need to get the actual address. I want to put the address of this house on this layout. I do put a little bit of journaling, from just the stories that they were telling us about how they grew up. But I also have put a journaling spot where I can put the address of the house. And this house is still in the same town where Ernest's parents live, so it's definitely still there. This picture is the house 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. Oh no, it is 2.5 years ago. There we go. I swear I know math in the calendar. I swear I do. But this is a picture of that house 2.5 years ago, and his grandfather was in his 80s. So this house is like over 80 years old now. Ernest grew up in a pretty historical town. It's a very small town, but it has a lot of historical, history to it. There's a famous author that came out of there and a whole bunch of different things. So the town is very well preserved. And I just thought it was so cool to have a picture of this house and to know some of the stories that his grandfather and his brother and sister had told us when we were down there. So I definitely wanted to go ahead and get that documented. Now, in doing this layout, I don't know if you guys remember, I started a family history book a couple years ago. Oh, it probably was 4 years ago or so. And I've done a little bit in it here and there. I've kind of added different stories over time, but I haven't done a ton in it. And I always say that I'm going to take it down to my mom's house and let her write the story of how her and my dad met, and let my sisters write little stories and, get a couple things. My dad has passed away already, but get a couple things with his handwriting and maybe put them in there just so it's kind of like a family history book. And it is a large smash book, like one of the larger ones. I want to say it's 8.5 by 11. But it's a perfect medium for that type of project because it's already bound together. It's already there. I'm not really adding embellishments. It's really more about the journaling, and then I'm adding a few photos here and there. But I think it would be super awesome to maybe try to start something like that for Ernest's family. We don't have as many family members on his side anymore, and everybody lives a lot further, so we don't see them near as much. But wouldn't it be kind of cool to go ahead and get as much as possible and put it in that book? I just think it'd be fun. So I'm really kind of thinking about doing that. I need to find a large smash book because I would like to do the same style of book. So I could have like a family history of Ernest's side of the family and then a family history of my side of the family, and just have it be a working book that I continue to use over, 20 years as I hear random different stories. Just like this story. Like, it would be fun to go ahead and have that in there and have those addresses documented in there as well. Have Ernest's parents' address in there, because you never know in 20 years if they'll still be at the house that they're at. That's the house that they've been at as long as I know them, but who knows? They might be somewhere different. So I just think it'd be kind of cool. Doing this particular layout made me think that I need to do a family history book for his family as well, and continue the project with my family. We've actually had another person born since I started working on the album, so I need to add the other name, and maybe even two. I don't know if both my nephews, the two youngest ones, were born. If the second to youngest was born yet or not. But there may even be two names that I need to add into that book. So I need to just go ahead and pull that project back out and look at it. I might try to work on that in the next week or two. Just a couple of thoughts, add a couple different things in there. Just to kind of update it, as well as add a couple more stories. So this layout, what I've done so far is I originally thought about using that gray. Okay, it's not gray. It's cream and green. That's what I'm trying to say. It reminds me of hash marks, but I've got it turned to the side. So they're more like hyphens, I suppose, is what you could call them. They're like little dash lines, and kind of a limey pale green with a cream background. It is not a white background, and you can tell because I'm putting it on a white cardstock here. I originally thought I was going to use that pattern paper as my entire background, and I was just going to hold onto the cardstock and not really use the cardstock from the kit. But I changed my mind. I just didn't like the way that the green was so busy, I guess. So I cut a chunk out of it, and I'm kind of like layering my photo on it. And I'm really just using some manufacturer strips. I use 3 of them here. I use like a darker gray stripe. I use a black and white stripe. And then I use a paler gray stripe to kind of put around my photo. And also to go ahead and put the title on. So the title is An Old Family House, but it also could be read as An Old Family or An Old Family House. I just kind of like the play on the words there to be able to put both of them. Now, after I got the photo and the title down, I'm like, okay, now what? I don't know exactly what I want to add. So I just kind of start going through the embellishments. I had that large Family Ties pattern paper that has all the word strips on it that you could just cut apart. So I cut out our story. And then I cut out this wood grain one that says, "This family of mine is a great adventure." And then I find a large quote. One that I also cut out, and what it says is, "If we know where we came from, we may better know where to go. If we know who we came from, we may better understand who we are." And I thought that was just a really kind of nice quote to put on here whenever it's dealing with family, and we're talking like family from 80 years ago. We're not talking about like family from 10 years ago. We're talking like 80 years ago. So I just thought that was a really kind of nice quote to put on here. Plus, it kind of brings in some of the natural color of the wood. And since this is a picture, obviously, of outside of a house, you've got kind of like the leaves and the trees and all of that. So I felt like it really just worked well with the color scheme that I had going on. So I'm going to get those adhered and get my journaling spots adhered. And these journaling spots are just out of the little journaling drawer that I keep on my desk. Those are things that I had stamped out quite a long time ago when I was playing with my stamps one day. And so I just kind of keep those in there, and whenever I need some journaling, I pull it out. And I love how small the lines are on these journaling, because I like to write small. I like to be able to write small and include a lot of journaling without it being like half the page. I battle back and forth with whether I liked typed journaling or if I like handwritten journaling better, but it's probably a good thing that I battle, because then I have both of them in my album, and you can see typed journaling that's all nice and pretty and precise, and then you also have like my handwriting, which I don't necessarily think is messy, but I also don't think it's super fancy and clean looking either. So I just kind of go back and forth between the two. Now I had this geotag that was just like stuck to my desk. I had found it stuck to my arm or something when I was doing my reorganization series, and I had no idea where it came from. It's a puffy sticker. So I just stuck it to my little toolbox, and I just kind of had it sitting there, and I just pulled it off to put on here because it's the black and white stripe that kind of goes with the layout already. I went through the little washi book and I found this gray arrow that I thought would work well. Plus it would bring a little bit of weight up here to this top cluster. And you're going to see me fuss around with this a little bit because I also end up using the rest of this black and white stripe that is also up here. I tried to put it on the end kind of unsuccessfully and to make it look like it was one continuous piece that was running down. But then the second piece is just not going to be straight. And I end up giving up on it and it looks fine. But if you look super close, you'll realize that it's not straight and it kind of bothers me. But I was not going to take any additional time to fix it because I kept trying to fix it. It just wasn't working. So instead of fussing and fussing, that is how it's going to actually stay. And so because I put that black and white stripe there, I went ahead and moved the gray arrow over just a tad, just to add a little bit of separation between that and the black and white stripe. Now I'm pulling out these puffy asterisks again. I've used a lot of these. I was kind of surprised. I have like the pinks and the purples and the oranges kind of left, but I'm using the green, the rest of the green ones pretty much up on this layout just to bring a little bit of that color. The green is kind of an understated color on this layout. It wasn't necessary. It originally started out as like my focal point by using this big giant piece of pattern paper, and then it ends up being a little bit more neutral of a layout, and then the green just ends up being kind of an accent piece, but I'm totally fine with that. So I'm thinking a final element that I'm going to add to this layout, just something to kind of scatter about, are a few of these little circle vellum washi stickers, I suppose you could call them. I was kind of surprised at how usable these have been in this entire kit. I only have 2 million of them though, so I mean it's going to take me quite some time to go through them. But I put them on a little bit of white cardstock and then I punched them out using my Stampin' Up! 1/2-inch circle punch. Now that's slightly smaller than these stickers actually are, but because of the placement of the image on the stickers, I'm able to punch them out without really invading on the image itself, and it works just fine. So I add a gray tone-on-tone heart up by the title. I'm going to add a green tone-on-tone one that says remember down by my quote in my journaling, and then there's a gray and white one at the top that's going to say the beginning. And I think those are all super appropriate for this layout. And that's actually going to finish out this layout. I hope you guys have enjoyed this week of scrapbooking. I will be back Monday with either a new kit or something different. I still haven't decided what I'm going to do. But let me know if you have any questions whatsoever, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I will talk to you next week. Bye!